personal favorites. We'll be discussing the connection between mental and physical health, specifically through nutrition, with the one and only Scott Gooding. Scott, welcome to the stage. It's great to be connected to you again.
G'day, Zach. How are you?
Very good, very good. You're the closing star here, so looking forward to the next few minutes of the session.
I don't know about how much truth in that there is, but thank you anyway.
We'll do our very best. So for those on the call, by way of introduction, Scott has written 9 health-related books. He's built online health programs. He's curated the Scott Gooding Project, and most recently brought ethical and regenerative produce to doorsteps to help ensure the health of the soil, ecology, and our planet. Scott works with clients all over the world as a nutrition and health coach and a sports nutritionist. English by background, Aussie by choice. That was not in your profile, but I put it in.
Like it.
I do welcome Scott. I'm American by birth and Aussie by choice as well. So we have some.
I hadn't detected the accent at all, mate.
Good stuff. So Scott, maybe we can kick off here. I read that you have a very interesting story. I think you had a severe injury that happened back in 2005 that kind of launched you into the world of well-being. Maybe we can just kind of start with that and then launch into some questions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I sort of came into the industry in a roundabout kind of way, not one that I certainly planned anyway. It was actually, as you've sort of alluded to, through adversity. So predating, so that happened, the incident itself happened in 2005. So predating that, I was a very active, and probably you could argue too active, which is kind of why I probably got injured in the first place. But it really disrupted my world. It disrupted my identity. I was no longer the fit guy because I couldn't perform 1 push-up, let alone 30. And so it sent me on this path of, because my physical health wasn't optimal like it had been for the predating 29 years of my life, my mental health sort of took I was going to say a slow and steady decline, but it was quite rapid. Once I realized that this was a chronic thing and not something that I'd recover from over a weekend or a week, as the months slipped by and it turned into years, my mood became dysregulated, my ability to be present with others, to laugh, to smile, that all got heavily affected. And I suffered from bouts of depression within that 6 or 7 years that I had to contend with that. But as well as it being the hardest period of my life, without a doubt, throw a divorce in there as well for good measure, it has actually been a true blessing, because it forced my hand to really unpack what it is that made me healthy, what it was that eventually got me out of that dark space. And I had to fix my body first before it could sort of complement and support my mind. So in that 7-year period, essentially, not that I was wasting my time because I got there in the end, but I was hell-bent on fixing myself in a very mechanical sense. That's how my logic worked. I had a mechanical injury. You could put it on an X-ray screen and see that there was something pathologically wrong with my spine. So I tried, physio, chiro, osteo, everything. Trust me, in that 7-year period, I tried pretty much everything I could get my hands on, with very little success, long-term sustainable success. In that last year, I started to read about foods that were pro-inflammatory and foods that were anti-inflammatory. And at that point, Zach, I really had, nothing to lose. So I systematically started to eliminate, reduce, and avoid. Probably avoid, actually, is probably the better word, because I ended up becoming quite militant about it. I set up these firm parameters about what was in, what was out, and the results were transformative. Within 6 months, 12 months, I was well on track to being who I was, 7, 8 years prior to that. I started to fit back into who Scott was. I slowly got my identity back. I was able to be more present, more engaged, live life as life should be lived. Because I can hand on heart say that it's near or nigh impossible to be present, wholly present, when you're contending with chronic pain. The two don't sort of go hand in hand. So anyway, it forced me to unpack my nutrition and essentially confirm to me that nutrition can be therapeutic and medicinal. And of course, I am my own case study, N=1. This wasn't a clinical controlled trial, but I'm convinced. And so it sort of forged my path, really. It sort of dictated what my passion is. It's given me fire in my belly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And sometimes, unfortunately, it takes, these incidents or these milestones in life to kind of recalibrate, if you will. I've had my own traumatic experience. It wasn't physical. And I kind of equate it to unpacking a garage and repacking it, right?
Right.
Getting all the clutter out. And then you're very systematic and cognizant about what goes back in. It sounds like you went through a similar process. And you talk about inflammatory foods. My wife, who I think you've traded notes with in the past as a nutritional therapy practitioner, I don't speak her language, but I certainly am familiar with, the inflammatory foods, et cetera. I guess that leads into my question around, describe a little bit how you eat, cook, and feed your family.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think if I had to hang my hat on a couple of terms or in answering that, and if I could rank them, it would probably be flavor first, which might sound odd coming from a nutritionist, but if you're going to entice you, me, and my family, and if you've got little ones, it has to be flavor first. It has to be delicious. And I'm not saying that you can't have healthy food and delicious. It can't be, I'm not saying that those two are inseparable. You can have healthy food, but it's got to be delicious. Like, you and I know that we should eat X number of cups of veggies.
Yep.
Unless those veggies are treated with love and respect and seasoned and, with herbs and spices, at least some lemon and salt, you're not going to entice and allure even yourself back to the dinner table, let alone your little kids. So flavor first, and then health. And what I mean by that is this adherence to, or this subscription to, real food, unprocessed and unrefined. So, I'm probably one end of the spectrum, in the sense that probably 95% of what I consume is unprocessed and unrefined. And everyone's on a sliding scale. And I'm not suggesting if you're starting at 0%, then you need to get to somewhere up in the 80s or 90s. But as long as there's like a one foot in front of the other, and being cognizant that maybe you should be eating more real food, unprocessed and natural food, so there should be a tracking in a positive direction. So flavor first, real food second, and I might sound sort of perhaps cheesy, but there's love in there as well. So
100%.
And what I mean by that is I love cooking, and I take a lot of, and as I know you do, take a lot of pleasure in that space, being in the kitchen. It's my social area, actually. It's like, the kitchen is the best room for any party, but, not that we're partying these days, but, my wife's there, my kids come in and out. It's my happy place. And food is that thing that unifies us all. It's that time that we can down tools and embrace conversation and chatter, and brings us together as a family, as a unit. And I guess the last thing, if I had to rank these, I would say that there's always an ethical backbone. So, as you alluded to in my intro, the provenance of food is very important to me. And so, I do eat meat, I do eat chicken, I do eat eggs, I occasionally eat fish. And so I will endeavor to obtain those, purchase those from ethical sources as best as I can.
100%.
So, but I also think, Zach, like I've worked very long and hard to get to that point where the diet or the attitude to a diet, and one that I've embodied for the last 10 years, it took me 35 years to get to that point. So I've been talking a lot with clients this week actually about, we've got years, we've got decades on this planet. We don't have to be fit and healthy and radicalize our diet by tomorrow afternoon. The best approach is actually small, sequential, following a stepwise manner, and we'll get there. So
it's kind of all the 1%ers, right? They all add up over time. And if you do take a radical approach or extreme approach, it's, a crash diet, if you will, versus adopting a lifestyle and a way of eating. And, going back to being more aware of eating whole foods, the best advice that I got, was basically don't eat anything that your grandmother didn't understand the ingredients in, right? It's really basic, right?
Yeah, so it's a basic philosophy or signature to subscribe to, but it works. Or one might be, was it live? Was that food live? If it's not, if it wasn't, was it grown on a tree or bush? Did it swim in a river or an ocean, or did it walk in a paddock? If the answer is no, then maybe it doesn't deserve to go in your supermarket trolley.
So you're advising to not eat Twinkies.
I don't even know what they are, but
you don't know what Twinkie is. Oh boy, I'm going to mail you a box. You'll probably throw it out and not eat it, but it's coming your way. Yeah, speaking of Twinkies, people love convenience, right? We're on the go. We have a busy schedule. We're all over the place. It's a high pressure environment. We kind of create this ecosystem that we live in, right or wrong. What are your tips to making healthy meals more accessible? How do you go about that?
Well, I could sit here and sort of espouse sort of shortcuts and tips and tricks to kind of, work around, being healthy, but I'm actually not going to do that. I'm actually going to say that, and kind of apropos what I was just saying, is that if you're one of those people, and I speak with clients daily, if not weekly, around this subject, that people have positioned themselves or labeled themselves unable to cook. I'm a terrible cook. I'm a bad cook. I burn everything. So, it's sort of hinged on bad experiences. So that person might be consuming 0% food that they've made from scratch and with love and natural foods. And so entirely 100% convenience, packaged and processed. So what I was saying earlier about making a positive trend towards eating more real food, and you can only do that primarily if you're cooking in your own kitchen. And that essentially is becoming the custodian of your own health. You're taking ownership of your own health. So it's not to say that, we're going to be Raymond Blanc anytime soon, or, be Jamie Oliver, far from it. But if we can, within a 6-month period, say, cook a few dishes, and the more repetitions we cook, the better we get. It's like any acquisition or skill or craft, the more time and diligence and effort we put in, we get better. So if over 6 months, 10% of what you consume is natural and unprocessed, that's a huge step in the right direction. Extrapolate that out to 12 months, 20%. So now you're having 80% processed and refined versus 100 a year ago. And if you keep on that trend, within 2 or 3 years, half of what you're consuming is real and unprocessed.
Yeah.
And again, we're here for decades. And so we don't have to make radical change, within days. We can make it sequential over a longer period of time. And that's when it's going to stick.
And food is almost like a medicine for your body. It helps heal, right? And you kind of are what you eat. And so over time, as you eat more and more kind of whole, nutritious food that's cooked at home, to your point, these all add up. more to a natural diet, staying away from processed stuff. And I guess that leads me to my final question. As kind of we come into the end of the day here, is if you could take one food out of the standard Western diet, what would that be and why?
Meringue.
I think I'm probably with you.
No, I've got meringues like nails on a chalkboard, but I would have to be, I mean, it's probably no surprise, but it'd have to be sugar.
Yeah.
Sugar is inherently pernicious to our health. It is ubiquitous in the Western world, and it triggers or presses upon an age-old primal mechanism, which is the dopamine mechanism. And by doing so, it encourages us, it sort of pushes us to having more of that thing. It's the pleasure pain scenario. So the more sugar that we have, the more we crave and the more we seek it out. And so that mechanism has served us incredibly well historically. You know, our ancestors, it encouraged us to gorge and feast when there was an abundance of sugar and fatten us up for winter. In 2021, the ubiquitous nature of sugar means that there is no winter. It's always, there's always abundance. And so it trips us up. So it's not to say that I foresee a world or promote a world without, to your point, Twinkies or ice cream, or, life is for living and life is for enjoying. But I think if I would love to see, and I guess it's the undercurrent of what I'm promoting, is more of a swing towards us adhering to more unprocessed and natural foods. Because the typical Western diet, I did hear something some time ago that, and sorry to bring the Americans into it, but the typical American got their staples from 4 or 5 foods, corn, grain, corn, wheat, sugar, I forget the other. Whereas, which is, your nutrient intake is pretty minimal really from that diversity of 4 or 5 main staples. Whereas, an indigenous to Australia, well in excess of 800. So there's an array of minerals, there's an array of nutrients that they're receiving, inputting into their physiology. So yeah, it would be sugar. I know that's a pretty boring answer, but
no, I think it's a very important one. I would agree. It's in absolutely everything. It's in bread, it's in drinks, it's in snacks, it's in pastries, it's in your coffee. I mean, without just going absolutely over the top, eating Brussels sprouts every day, how do you avoid this? I mean, does this just come back to the kitchen and preparing your own meals and preparing your lunch if you're going on the go, and healthy snacks? And then you have your kids that are going over to other houses and having birthday cakes. And I mean, we have to live a little bit, right? Like ice cream and a birthday cake every once in a while is good. A pizza, I had it last night, I'll admit, had a salad with it. But how do we generally avoid these things when it's in every aspect of our diet?
I think it comes down to largely what I've described, and that's being the custodian of your own health. And that can only really happen if you're cooking most of the food, or aiming for it to be most of the food, as long as there's that trend towards more and more. Part of that is becoming a food detective, reading, having a look at labels, becoming familiar with the different guises that sugar can come in, because manufacturers are pretty sneaky, so they'll get it in many different guises, So it's becoming more nutritionally aware, starting to read labels, starting to cook more at home. And by doing that, so you by virtue of minimizing, let's say reducing the intake of carbohydrates or sugar in all those forms that you say, increases the bandwidth of savory and salt and umami sensation.
Yeah.
And you can actually sort of start to inform your own physiology about what Scott or Zach leans towards or is motivated by. So that can work both ways. You know, if you love sugar and you eat sugar frequently, those are the foods that you naturally go towards. But if you spend some time and effort sort of seeking out the savory, the umami, the salt foods, then naturally over a course of time, you'll have a higher proclivity to those types of foods.
Yeah, and I've done these types of kind of, I hate to say the word diet because I don't really believe in it, but I've eliminated sugar in the diet. I've followed, kind of more fat intake, if you will, in whole foods. And then I've had a bowl of ice cream and it makes my teeth hurt. Like the palate just doesn't want anything to do with it. And then over time, you kind of fall back into the trap unless you're diligent about it. And so I 100% agree with you, Scott. Look, we could talk about this all day long. The time has already flown by, and perhaps I make a visit to you in Whale Beach again, and we stay away from the Twinkies and have a healthy lunch. Is there any closing thoughts that you want to share or have for the group?
Kind of maybe just echo. I've been talking about this to my clients, and I've mentioned it in our discussion today. Is that there is this rush and this urgency to improve our health, and quite often there's a risk of throwing everything at the wall and hoping that it all sticks. But you're better off splicing your nutrition and testing one channel, and you might do that for 30 days or 60 days before you see if there's a positive net outcome. And if it is, you push down a little bit harder and forge a habit around that new attitude. And then you might look at another aspect of your nutrition and see if there's a positive net outcome after 30 or 60 days before you push down a little bit harder and forge a new pattern. So adapting to a new positive, healthy lifestyle, I would say don't rush that. Take your time. We've got years and decades on this planet. Allow that to unfold over a year, 2 years, 3 years. Just take the heat off yourself would be my closing statement.
But also start the journey as well.
Start the journey, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's great. And one last question for you. Top 3 items in your pantry.
In my pantry?
Or in your kitchen?
Salt.
I knew it. I was guessing that in my head.
Butter.
I didn't guess that one.
Eggs.
Oh, there you go. I love a good egg. Love a good egg. We went up into the Blue Mountains and enjoyed some time away before lockdown. And at the Airbnb, they had a chicken coop and we could help ourselves to fresh eggs in the morning. And that was it was amazing. It was very cool. Scott, I really appreciate the time. We're up. Thanks for dialing in. This has been incredibly helpful and insightful, and just wanted to say thank you again and appreciate all of your contribution on the Unmind platform as well.
Well, thanks for having me, Zach, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, mate. Take care.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So that was fun. I love Scott. He's got an incredible personality and just a great way, in my opinion, of thinking about things and looking after his health. And as I mentioned, he's a contributor and a collaborator to the Unmind platform and our nutrition section. So that's a wrap for the day. I really hope everyone enjoyed the session. So many great speakers, content, hopefully takeaways that you can all put into practice immediately. As a friendly reminder, we will be sending out a survey post this event. We're a company about feedback and continuous improvement, so please do share your thoughts. I've just got a couple more things in closing for you. First off, at Unmind, we firmly believe in our mission and solution to support your employees wherever they are in the mental health spectrum, from surviving and disengaged to thriving and engaged. We're here to support, and we currently do so with about 3.5 million employees on our platform in over 100 countries. If you're interested in learning more about Unmind, please don't hesitate to get in touch at the email learn@unmind.com. We welcome the opportunity and would love to explore how we might be able to support your organization. And then finally, I'd just like to acknowledge that we're in unprecedented times right now that most of us have never experienced before. And I just want to stress that it's imperative that we as HR leaders are leading from the front, We're bringing the energy, we're creating a positive mindset and push through what has been some of the most trying years of our lives. It's times like this where we need to come together and focus on how we help each other, think positively, and inspire greatness. One of my favorite quotes I live and die by is, where your focus goes, your energy flows. I'll read it again. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. Think about it. How we operate and the things we focus on determine our mindset and our approach to life, which impacts all of those around us. We're on the brink of coming out of this pandemic and moving on to bigger and better, brighter times. I personally can't wait. Thank you all again for the time. We look forward to the next Kaleidoscope. Have a wonderful rest of your day and stay happy and healthy out there.